once upon a time tucked away in the sleepy town of Greystone, where cobblestone streets echoed with the laughter of children, and the rhythm of life seemed to slow down to a lazy stroll, there was a shop that most people passed by without a second glance. It wasn't particularly grand. Its windows were dusty, its paint chipped, and its gables were perpetually adorned with climbing vines. But there was something about the place that made it stand out from the rest. A subtle pull that beckoned those who felt its call, and nestled above the door, almost hidden amongst the foliage, was a brass plate engraved with a single word, Horace's Timepieces. Now, if you were to ask any of the townsfolk about the shop, their answers would vary. Some might tell you that it was filled to the brim with the most exquisite pocket watches and grandfather clocks, each ticking away the moments with an air of timeless elegance. Others might whisper that the shop was nothing more than an antique store filled with broken relics and forgotten memories. But the truth lay somewhere in between these tales, for the shop held secrets that lay dormant, waiting for the right moment to stir. And one rainy evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and grey, a young woman named Evelyn found herself drawn to the shop's beckoning call. She was new to town, having arrived just a few weeks earlier, and still, something about the quaint, almost forgotten corner store tugged at her heartstrings. Wrapped in a shawl against the drizzle, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. The chime above the door tinkled like wind chimes, and for a moment, the only sound was the soft patter of raindrops on the glass. The interior was dimly lit, with shafts of light filtering through the grimy windows and illuminating motes of dust that danced in the air. Behind the counter sat a man so frail he seemed like a wisp of smoke about to scatter in the wind. His skin was like aged parchment, his eyes bright embers in the twilight of his face. When he saw Evelyn, a faint smile touched his lips. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. Evelyn blinked, surprised. "Me? I just needed shelter from the rain," she replied, glancing around at the jumble of clocks that adorned the walls and filled the shelves. Their hands ticked with a discordant rhythm, as if each one was keeping time for a different world. She couldn't help but wonder if the old man was a clockmaker, or perhaps a collector of forgotten timepieces. But the man, Horace, as he introduced himself, had other plans for her. With a sudden, surprising swiftness, he slid a small, ornate pocket watch across the counter. It was exquisite, crafted from silver and gold, and yet there was a strange familiarity about it that she couldn't quite place. As Evelyn reached out to examine it, her fingers brushed against its surface, and she recoiled as if burned. The metal was warm, almost feverish. "What's this?" she asked, looking up at Horace, whose gaze seemed to hold a universe of untold stories. "This isn't for telling time," he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "It's for changing it. One turn and you may relive a single moment." Evelyn's eyebrows shot up in surprise. She laughed nervously, unsure whether to be intrigued or alarmed by his cryptic words. She didn't know this man. His words sounded like the ramblings of a madman, and yet there was something about his demeanor, something in the way he held himself, that inspired a strange sense of trust. Before she could respond, Horace leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It won't bring back what is lost, but perhaps it might mend what is broken." He paused, his gaze distant, as if he was seeing more than time and space allowed. "Take it," he urged, extending the watch towards her. "Use it wisely, my child, for every gift is also a burden." Overcome by a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, Evelyn hesitantly took the watch from his outstretched palm. The moment their fingers met, a jolt, not of electricity, but of recognition shot through her. It was as if she had known him forever and in another lifetime. And then he smiled, a sad, knowing smile that mirrored the melancholic tilt of the old clocks on the wall. "You must go now," he said, his voice barely a murmur. "The rain will end soon, and you have moments to catch." As she turned to leave, the bell above the door chimed again, and for a fleeting moment, she thought it was calling her name. Outside, the rain had stopped, and a sliver of sunlight peeked through the parting clouds, painting the wet cobblestones in shimmering hues of gold. Holding the watch tightly in her hand, Evelyn hurried away, the echo of Horace's words resonating in her ears. That night, lying in bed, safe and warm, she stared at the ornate pocket watch nestled in the palm of her hand. Its intricate design seemed to writhe and twist, and she could have sworn she heard the faintest of ticking coming from its depths. As the night deepened and shadows stretched and danced on the walls, she found herself twisting the watch's dial, half in fascination, half in trepidation. And in that instant, the world around her seemed to shimmer and warp, like water disturbed by a pebble tossed into its placid surface. She blinked, confused, and suddenly she was back outside, standing on the rain-slicked street where she had first spotted Horace's shop. But it was a week earlier, a week before she had met the enigmatic old man and received his cryptic gift. She watched as a carriage rumbled past, kicking up spray from the puddles and sending shivers down her spine. And then she saw it, a small family photo that had fallen from her hand and lay forgotten in the mud. Without hesitation, she rushed towards it, her heart pounding with a strange mix of excitement and fear. With trembling fingers, she picked up the photo. It was slightly soiled, but its image, the smiling faces of her parents and her younger self, remained clear. As she clutched the photo close, the familiar dizziness swept over her, and when she opened her eyes, she was back in her bed, the same room, the same night. But now the photo was nestled safely in her hand, a tangible reminder of the impossible journey she had just undertaken. Her heart pounding, she realized that Horace's words were true. The watch did allow her to revisit a moment in time, to right a wrong or perhaps just to set things to rights. But with that power came a profound responsibility. It was a burden she wasn't sure she was ready to carry. Yet, as she looked at the watch, its ticking growing louder in her ears, she knew that the decision had been taken out of her hands. The watch had chosen her. Now she had to decide how to wield its power, whether to use it to alter the course of events or to leave the tapestry of time untouched.